the intro, and
do you want me to put some music behind it?
Welcome to Dad's Deals and Drinks.
Please don't show me those puppies. It's going to be so sad every time I see it. Oh, man.
Okay, all right, guys.
So
well,
harsh.
I'm glad the three of us are here. We hadn't even had a drink yet, maybe one sip. So this is the podcast, Dad's Deals and Drinks, where three guys get together, start a conversation about real life issues, a little business stuff too, all over a good drink. First, I want to start off by saying how stoked I am for the three of us to be doing this, guys.
It's very natural.
You know, it's not easy. I mean, it is easy to get a platform out there, and today there's hundreds of people, thousands of people out there that are giving really solid advice, from parenting to mental health, business too. But there's also just as easy for people to have a platform that are giving advice that may be a bit more toxic. So I'm excited for us to start a conversation about navigating what's good and what is actually very toxic. I'm Josh.
I'm Tyler.
I'm also Josh.
Yeah, so we got a problem here. We got two Joshes.
Yeah, so that was going to be my first
two
question.
Joshes.
How do
That's
we
the name of the
decipher for the listener out there which Josh is
I
which?
have a solution.
Okay. What's
I
your
don't know if
solution?
you'll love it. So,
Mine like this.
so my
here for
friends, like deep friends that
not
know
us.
me, know me.
So
me.
you're like letting us in
No
Yeah.
secret.
right here, right off the rip.
I went by Gummy at one point in my life
Gummy.
because of Montgomery.
I had all kinds of other thoughts going in my head.
Yeah.
I just didn't brush my teeth ever. But
This gum's so inflamed.
there's also a circulating joke in a friend group that I say also to all the time. So being also to Josh is not a horrible decision.
Oh, so you're also Josh.
Also Josh.
Also Josh.
Yeah, I'm also
Okay.
Josh.
So you're also Josh. I didn't have any
it's
solutions
stinky.
for that. I was going to go with something a little less creative.
We can go Montgomery too.
It was just
That's
like,
fine.
Josh with a stash and Josh with a beard. But I like Gummy.
It's like a 5 o'clock shadow on time.
Sexy stuff. Thank you.
It's like a progression.
We get,
It is.
Like
We
if
get all
you look at it,
adulted.
it's like
So Tyler
o'clock shadow.
has a 5 o'clock shadow, and then also Josh has a full on stash, and then
Yeah. It's
I've
not going
got
anywhere.
like a
Grizzly
gorilla
Adams.
on my face of some
Looks
sort.
good.
So thanks, man.
Jealous.
I put a lot of work into this beard.
really jealous.
Tune into our YouTube channel, and you can see my beautiful beard.
Coming soon.
Okay, so one of the aspects of our podcast is drinks. So we're going to kind of do a thing where each week one of us will surprise everybody else with a drink of their choosing. So I got to go first. So up today is just a traditional, it's my favorite drink that I drink almost every time going out, an old-fashioned. So what I've done here, guys, I have taken some Wheeler's Double Rye Whiskey. It has been aged for 5 years and 4 months.
It's very specific.
It was on the bottle. That's the only reason I knew it.
so you read about
I
this.
did. I read it. I read it on the label.
We could wait.
But the
8 more
kicker
months?
here is
Nah,
it's
let's go ahead. Let's get this thing out
115
now.
proof. So sip it lightly.
That does not feel 115
No,
proof, bro.
does not feel as hot as it sounds.
No.
It definitely is pretty smooth, so it's
is
kind of
very
dangerous.
Yeah, that's wild.
So muddled, a little maraschino cherries in the bottom, a little simple syrup, a few dashes of bitters, and then just some whiskey, and put it in a glass. Drink it up. Cheers, fellas, to the first installment of surprise drinks.
Surprise drinks.
Drinks with friends.
Okay, so let's dive in. I want to kind of offer a question up to both of you guys. Let's just kind of dive in here and let's see. So, Josh, I'm going to start with you.
Let's do it.
And then Tyler, we'll move to you next. But I want you both to answer this question. Growing up, what was the discussion around mental health like in your household? Was it talked about? Was it even addressed? Was everything just swept under the rug? I'm not asking to like get deep down into childhood trauma or anything like that. Just kind of give me a brief
It's
synopsis.
a whole nother episode for me, fellas.
What's that?
That's a whole nother episode for me.
Right.
I think honestly, like,
Shit.
like I don't know if it was ever talked about. I think it was. There was definitely like there was like intentional conversation about like if I'm okay, but there was never like any emotional education. That's the word. There was no emotional education.
Yeah.
I have a ton of emotional awareness. It's actually kind of scary how much emotional awareness I have.
But did you get that as an adult?
So
you learned how to do
self-taught,
that as an adult?
and a lot of it was survival tactics. It's like, and a lot of it was honestly like learning to compartmentalize for survival.
Absolutely.
And so it wasn't like something where I sat down and my family was like, okay, like when you're feeling the super sad, that's what I call it.
Right.
When you're feeling the super sad,
Yeah.
do something about it. It was just like, okay, I feel the super sad and I want to like,
Give me a
I
hug,
want to
buddy.
hurt myself. And it's like, well, I'm just going to compartmentalize this and move on. And now that I've even grown up past that, there's a little bit more education that I've had to get, but it's all been through content. It's not been through content and consistent therapy with the same therapist instead of like therapist jumping,
So
which a
social
lot
media.
of people do.
So social media content.
Yes, 100%.
See, that's what I'm talking about. There's some good stuff out there.
Some good stuff and some very bad stuff.
There's some very bad stuff.
Yeah, you got to
Tyler,
tread lightly.
What about you? What was the mentality, the attitude around mental health, or at all?
Yeah, mostly a not at all.
Yeah.
Say there could be a whole episode on some childhood trauma that went around from my grandfathers.
We'll unpack some things.
when they left the world at a very young age for me. But with that, it was just, you're okay. They've gone somewhere else, but not like a true deep dive into what had actually happened,
Right.
what we should do to then help ourselves get through that trauma, to
grief.
move on. It was just that grief just kind of got buried.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just all right. Once the funeral happens, that's it.
I think that's probably normal. Like as
feel
far
like so,
as
too.
100%.
well, I don't want to say normal. Normal is a weird word to use, but
Common.
I think
Common.
that's
You could say
common.
common.
I think
Very
that is the common thing, because here's the thing, right? Like our parents just did the best job that they could do with the tools that they were given.
Same way
from
we
their
are as parents.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Although we have an advantage over our parents or any other generation because we do have so much content at our fingertips that
very
we
different.
can get. Like for me in my household, my parents were divorced at an early age. I want to say I was like 5 or 6 maybe.
Damn.
And it was
Seems sad for
it
me.
was
Yeah, I had mine till I was 18.
like super
Yeah,
sad.
I didn't get the super sad till like 19.
I feel like I mean, so I'm divorced and I have 2 kids and they were about the same age as me. My divorce was very different than my parents' divorce. We'll unpack that at a little later date. But
So many episodes already.
Literally.
I think mental health in my household, one household, we discussed it, but it was more like, oh, he's acting out in this way, so he needs to go to therapy. It wasn't in that my family or my mom could put like a finger on what it was that was going on, but she knew that I needed to talk to somebody. So I remember going to a therapist, maybe 14, 15, maybe 16.
I wish, bro.
But at that, I mean, I'm not gonna date myself. I mean, I am, but like that was 26
You're like 23,
years
right?
ago. Like that, I mean,
The beard's
thanks,
26.
Man. The beard,
The
yeah.
beard's
Beard's a solid
26.
26.
The beard's actually only like 6 months old. See if you can grow up here.
Did you
this
like
quick.
going to therapy at that young?
No.
Do you feel
I
like it
icky,
benefited you
weird.
as an adult, though?
I will say, it has benefited me as an adult. During that time, no, I didn't.
Sure.
Because I was going to therapy as a punishment.
Yeah, I hated brushing my
But
teeth
I
as
wasn't.
a teenager.
Right.
I
Like,
wasn't.
let alone,
I got in trouble for doing and acting out and doing certain things that he needs to go see a therapist. So to me, it was like that was my punishment.
you had to do it because you were in trouble.
100%.
You didn't
Saying
want to
helpful
do
at
it.
all. Yeah, that makes sense.
But I feel like
So
most
glad I
people
didn't
don't.
go to therapy.
Yeah, most people don't want to do the work. Most people don't want to go to therapy. I know tons of people that are mental health advocates. Like, I believe in mental health. I believe in mental health. Blah 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 blah, and they don't go see a therapist for themselves. And it's like, I get that you're an advocate for mental health, but if you're not talking to a professional, then what are you doing?
Not doing any of the work.
Because if even in our industries, right? If someone told me like I'm an expert in Josh Stimson's industry, but I don't talk to experts in that industry. I've never sold anything. I've never had a transaction, but I'm a self-proclaimed expert that's never had a conversation with somebody who does it.
Did you learn this on TikTok?
Yeah. Do you
That's
know what I
how you became
mean?
an
Like, that's
expert?
what it would be. And there is like a huge inundation of information around mental health because millennials are kind of over it. Gen Z is really a lot smarter than millennials, and they're willing to educate themselves. And the generation after Gen Z is what's called Generation Alpha, and they're going to put us all to bed because they're like, we don't even want technology. We're just over the inundation of it. And so, like, mental health is something that we've never had this much access to, but because we have so much access, we're not actually talking to experts.
100%.
Somebody talked to an expert, and then they were an expert
Speaking
an
of-
expert, and then they
Just want to solidify that we are not experts. We're,
just some dudes.
I do want to make sure people understand that. Like, I have no background in mental health, but
Other than me being depressed.
right.
That's about it.
I mean, like,
We know it.
having
I've
anxiety.
experienced mental health.
Yeah, like, I'm
Yeah.
an expert on anxiety,
You're
and
anxious.
and ADHD. But,
Sure.
But yeah, no, it's again, we're only as good as the tools that our parents had
Yep.
for them, and so it's hard to break that
Absolutely.
cycle. But I do think that by me going to therapy at that young age, that it opened the door for me to be completely and 100% acceptable to go to it now.
It took me a while to get into it.
It's funny because so me and my girlfriend, we go to therapy. We go to couples therapy, and we're not
Just
married.
me
We
and
don't
my
live
girlfriend.
together. We don't have kids together or anything like that. But we realized that we both had a lot of childhood trauma, and both had had learned some terrible ways to communicate and to react to each other, and we cared enough about each other to do it. But it was funny when she approached it. It was obviously, I didn't approach that, but
Yeah.
when she brought it up, I was like, yeah, I'm totally good with that. And she was so shocked to hear that I was like open to going.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that stemmed from going to therapy as a kid. And
Well, yeah, you had an introduction to it.
right.
Like,
Even
for
though
me,
it was
like,
punishment then, at least you
yeah,
had that
at least you
background.
knew. It's like you got to meet someone.
I was aware of it.
You got to meet someone before you wanted to meet them, but you still got to meet them. Like, for me, like, I probably should have been in therapy at 18 years old. I probably should have been there that day. And it took me until I was 32 years old before I realized, oh, I need to stop just talking about this, and I actually just need to go.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I was able to logic myself out of a lot of reasons why I shouldn't. And it's been probably the best year of my life, actually going to therapy, actually having a conversation every week about where I'm at, and doing a check-in with a professional. And for me, like, I almost had to date the idea for a decade before I was willing to do it. And there's a lot of people that are like that, but there's some situations where you don't have a decade to wait on it. You need to do it now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Like your life literally
Depends on it. Yes, 100%.
So, if you take away anything from this episode, go see a therapist. Like, you're struggling with stuff. Like, it is fine. You know.
There's affordable options out there too.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so I kind of want to kind of slide into our next thing that is we kind of break down some shitty advice, or let's just call it shitty advice. You know, toxic,
what it is.
whatever.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you wanna call it.
I do like the idea of calling it shitty masculinity instead of toxic masculinity.
Yeah. No more
too.
toxic masculinity.
Yeah, just
No
shitty
more
masculinity.
shitty masculinity.
We're
Let's go with
coining
it.
that term
New phrase right here.
Shitty masculinity.
It's out there.
Because that's essentially what you're doing. You're just being
100%.
shitty.
Yes.
And a lot of times just for the sake of being shitty. I feel like when you watch some of these advice there, you know, watch these people give this advice, I feel like it is just, sometimes I think they are just trying to be controversial.
Oh,
The
100%.
people that actually believe what they're saying aren't necessarily the people that have said it, you know,
Yeah.
or all the people that are saying it don't always believe what they're saying, but there is a certain segment of the population that is just giving out shitty advice,
Real bad.
sometimes in the name of just what?
Well,
Go ahead.
clicks.
I'll let you.
I mean, right? Like they got a book or they're selling or whatever. There's some. I mean, you know, I see books all the time that come out, and I'm like, how in the hell did that dude get to write a book? Like,
Literally.
oh, anybody can write a book and put it out, and nobody has to vet the information they're putting out there.
No.
People just have to buy their book.
Yes.
So
It's all marketing.
yeah, and so what a lot of times it is it makes you feel good about the shitty things you're doing, and
Right.
so the book sells. Just because it's like an echo chamber, right?
Yep.
Like it's like, oh, see?
Me too.
Beating my kid is
Yeah.
okay.
I'm just a little sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like, oh, here's a book on it. Buy my book, listen to my talk. So all that to say, I'm gonna play a little excerpt. All right, I just wanted to pause real quick so we can edit this part out, but I can play this now, and that's not. I don't want this to be on. I want to play it, but we'll actually loop it in.
Yeah, I can pull the audio in.
Okay, cool. But I just want it to be fresh so we can talk specifically about this dude. So.
Until I'm her husband, then how will
My blood boiled when I heard this, by the way.
Yeah.
something that's forced on a wife? This is why I say to young men, if you find a young woman that you're interested in and she is unsubmissive, run. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Get out now. By the way, when I say she's unsubmissive, I don't mean she's submissive to you. Because she's not called to be submissive to you. I get that sometimes too. You know, my girlfriend, she's not really submissive to me. My response to that complaint is always, good for her. Have you married her yet? Then she must not submit to you. Well, wait a minute. If she's not supposed to submit to me until I'm her husband, then how will I know if she's submissive? Watch her with her father.
Dude. Okay, so,
creepy.
all right.
It's
Can I,
just.
can I start off on this?
Go for it, Joe. You got
somebody.
some thoughts. Get
Okay,
your thoughts
so this guy, you know, I was like, okay, some biblical advice right here. The Bible's pretty toxic in the advice it gives you in relationships. Like, you know, that's well proven.
Is that because it's archaic or?
Yeah, I mean, and who
word.
even knows who?
Good word.
Yeah.
Cheers.
But then he gets all serious, and this is y'all. This is a pastor. I'm not sure his name, or I would call him out. That it has an audience of people that are leaning to him to advice, and this is the bullshit that he is preaching.
Coming out of a
literally.
Literally.
I mean.
Yeah, he actually has
One
a pulpit.
word.
We got
When
a
you
few
heard
microphones.
when you heard
No
him go,
turntables.
look at her with her father. One word. What was your first thought?
Just icky. Like, you know,
It's yeah.
Groomer, pedophile. Like that's
Right.
disgusting.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
calling that dude, but like that's disgusting. Like why is it like? I don't know. I don't even know how to unpack almost all this. But let's start with the submissive part.
Yeah, what made her submissive to her father? I guess it's kind of what you're going
That's
to
the
there.
hard part too. Is like he's obviously
harsh
talking
was that?
about
hard was her life?
like father as in the way she's submissive to God, not to like her actual paternal father. Like that's what he's.
The comments though. The comments under that all were taking it as they're talking about.
I'm
the
sure they
paternal
are,
father.
and it's because that language is like 1980s sermon preacher.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if I say like, I follow the Father, you're like, like who? Abraham? Like, I don't know. Like,
Right.
I don't know what that means.
Right.
And like, we live in a world right now where there's not a ton of people that go to church. And so that language that's very church specific is no longer like common knowledge. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to imply the way you can see that she's quote unquote submissive by the way that she is submissive to God or
God the
Jesus
Father.
or
Okay,
Buddha or whoever.
I took it as her.
I took
Like,
it
that's
as
what it
literal,
is.
too, and I was like, all right,
Dad.
creeper.
Oh, 100%. And it's like, do you know who's going to take that literal? Probably 95% of the people there that are there for the first time.
I feel like the guy that shared that video, I feel like he took it completely
probably did
the same
too.
way. It's like,
Yes.
she's submissive to her dad.
Yeah, so that means I can't date someone who grew up in a single family household.
Right,
Is that what that means?
Or somebody that's like-
what about people that don't
Yeah.
have dads? Like,
Yeah.
'cause that's a real thing.
I guess he can be quarterbacks for.
Yeah, I grew up,
either.
and I mean, I lived in a house with just my mom. So I wasn't submissive to my father when I lived with my mom. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But I think that's what he's trying to say. It's just like the context of it
Makes
is just
more
so
sense.
weird.
Yeah.
So here's my problem though with the whole wife being submissive, women being submissive. Like, for one, that's fucking bullshit, man.
It
It's
is.
fucking boring, is what it is.
For one, yeah, I don't want. Like a healthy relationship, in my opinion, is two people that are teammates. There are going to be times where I'm submissive to her, times where she's submissive to me, but I don't use it in that. It's just
'Cause that's a weird freaking word.
yeah, that's
Right.
like
You're not a
You're
slave.
not submissive
Yeah,
even
thank
to
you.
her.
You're not like
Yeah.
it's not like she's
You're
your
not-
employer.
you're not here-
her employer. Like
It's my first divorce.
she's not a
thought she was
fire
my
at will. She's not a fire at will
That's
employee. Like you've engaged in a deep social relationship.
yeah.
You can't fire somebody like that.
Right.
Like you can, but it's not like, hey, like this isn't working out. Like I guess we're just not together anymore today. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like if at my job I just like stopped showing up, I would get fired. And a lot of times in relationships, if you just stop showing up, you're numbing yourself, you shut off, like you're like disconnected.
Just going through the
You
motions.
can last for 30 years. It's not going to be a good 30 years, but it's different. And so the language of that, it implies that there's the submissiveness.
There's somebody that is of more value than the other.
There's somebody that has more power than the other.
there
That's
you
the
go.
problem.
Yeah.
It's a power dynamic thing.
Yeah.
And when you look at what he's talking about scripture, which is rooted in first century world, which was the men in power, because the men were the ones who had the jobs. Guess what? Women work just as hard as we do now. Men were in the first century world. Men were the ones with a paycheck. Guess what? My wife makes more than I do. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's like that power dynamic that they're talking about doesn't even exist anymore.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't even exist.
No, but they're holding on to it. They want it.
Of course they are.
They want it. They
This,
preach about it.
They forget
and
that women can vote now. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it's been going on for a
they're
minute.
trying to erode
102
that, though.
years.
Yeah. yeah.
102 years. But like, think about it. Like 100 years ago, my great grandfather could have gone to a church and heard that, and it would have made sense. It'd have been like, yeah, she can't even vote. Of course, she should be submissive to me.
Let
I'm
me
in charge.
mind you, though.
She doesn't have a job.
Yeah, she
of
can't
course.
drive.
You say
She
100
can't-
years ago, your
102.
grandfather.
My great grandfather.
I get that. There was 136,000 likes on that video. So
Yes.
people, it makes sense to people right now. They want
Yes.
that.
Of course
and
they
there
do.
were just as many women on there as men. Now, I mean, I guess to each their own is kind of what I'm saying. But like,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It just, to me, preaching about it is and telling people that this is what you need to look for in a woman. It just seems like you're a very little man.
Little boy.
Like
Little Napoleon.
yeah, like you know that.
I mean, I wrote down something I thought of as like that a quote unquote real man should want to equal a partner in life. Like someone that's going to challenge them, someone you can challenge yourself. So you push each other, and you push each other to advance your family. Like I don't need to advance anyone else's cause. I advance my own, and my wife helps me do that by challenging me. And I can't imagine being okay with just someone who's submissive. I didn't even think about this before, but in Coming to America, that's what sent Prince Hakeem to America was that he was going to have to marry that the girl that barked like a dog for him.
Right.
And did he want that? No. He wanted to go find his queen that was going to have her own, like,
it.
There we go. Here,
that's
guys.
actually a really good analogy. I like that. I like that.
So I realized we could have just all watched Coming to America and
It's actually, we're going to put it on the screen right now.
Yeah. So
It's the whole movie. It's going to be a
above my
4-hour
shoulder
podcast.
right here is Eddie Murphy.
Oh, your penis is clean, your highness. Thank you.
Oh man. Okay.
Bring me here for comic relief. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, so this is some of that toxic bad advice, and I love how we just jumped right in with a pastor. Because the pastors these days, there's a lot of them out there giving really, really shitty advice, and really shitty guidance on how to treat people and women, as you know, and just all sexual orientations and. I don't know. I'm not going to go off on that rant today, but
another episode.
Why don't we
We're
circle
packing
back around
episodes,
them?
Deep.
So we're all in kind of different stages in our relationships. Tyler, how long have you been married now?
4 years.
4 years. Josh,
Right,
you've been married
4
for
Nine.
For 9. Tyler, you have a 2-year-old, right? She's
Yep.
almost 2,
Just turned 2.
Just turned 2.
Not too long ago.
Josh,
on when you're
how
listening to
old
this
is y'all's
podcast.
son?
And we have a 5-year-old, and then we have the new baby will be here in
the
May.
New baby, yeah. So myself, I'm divorced, but I'm in a long-term relationship for almost 3 years now, and I have a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old.
Dang, bro.
Got two little adults. Running around.
And then my girlfriend has a 9-year-old. So we're all in very different stages of our relationships and fatherhood and everything.
Facial hair.
Definitely. I mean, you know.
It's all
progression.
It's all
Tyler,
emblematic.
you'll
It's
hit
all
puberty one
emblematic.
day,
It's
buddy.
all
It's
emblematic
fine.
of our
It's
entire dynamic.
Dude, embrace the beard.
Embrace it, bro.
But so what is something that you would consider a positive when it comes to a relationship or a mate, no matter who that be? You know, what's something you value in your wife that is not being submissive?
I love that.
And I want to preface that I know both of your wives, and
Yeah.
y'all are both married to really badass women.
Oh,
So,
100%.
so if you can't come up with something, like I got a few for you.
My wife
Well,
is a
Josh.
maverick. Like that's what she is. Like I grew up in a household that created in me this anti-conflict, avoidant mentality.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want conflict. Stresses me out. I would rather just succumb to what you need from me and be who you need me to be than to engage.
submissive?
Yes,
You wanna be
100%.
submissive, is that what you're
Then, submissive.
Yeah.
I'd rather be submissive than actually engage with you
But
in
that
conflict.
also kills you a little bit.
100%, because then it makes me a
Side of the
chameleon where I'm not ever really myself, and then I'm dealing with these conflicts of like, who am I, and is this me, or is this just Pastor Josh? Is this me, or is this just loan officer Josh? Is this me, or is this just friend Josh? And I'm like dealing with these different 50 versions of me. One thing that Emily does that is the exact opposite, my wife, she has zero issue walking up to somebody and being like, that was messed up. You shouldn't have said that.
No, dude.
And
She's
she
an
says it to me, and I'm
Enneagram.
like, nah.
She's an Enneagram 8, like me.
100%.
Like we don't give a shit.
Literally, and I love
we
it.
will
Call
your
confront
shit
you.
And I need it.
If we think you are in the wrong,
Yes.
like, we will not hesitate to like, in a way, you know. I mean,
Yes. As an avoidant type, like a avoidant conflict type.
yeah.
Like I do it. I have to address conflict all the time in business. Have to. Like I have to have conversations with people, have conversations with business partners or with consumers
It's
all
just
the
general
time.
problem solving.
Yeah,
not
and a lot of
necessarily
that
conflict
is-
avoidance. It's just
Yeah.
we are avoiding conflict to get through this
100%.
business transaction, and we can all move on with our lives. Like,
But in personal life, I'm stressed.
Right.
Like even a podcast, right? I'm like, God, like who's gonna hear this and be like, well, I don't like Josh now because he said this, and I disagree with that. Like I think about it all the time.
Right.
But Emily is like the most confident in herself, and it inspires me to be like, I can be that confident. I can just stand up for what I believe in. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't have to worry about if I get validation from you or you on my beliefs. I can just stand straight up and be like, no, this is where I'm at, and that's okay. And so that's what she does for me.
Yeah.
And I don't think if she was a submissive wife that I would get that.
No. Definitely would not.
No.
Tyler, what about you? What
I mean,
about
I think it goes to this is that my wife is constantly, Jessica, shout out, she's constantly thinking about the next thing, like the next way to progress our business. That is tough that we are in a business together. We run do our real estate business together, and we own rental properties, and we have to deal with those issues every single day. So she's always out front with like pushing to get better, pushing to streamline our our jobs.
She don't let you get away with shit.
She does not let me go to shit. That is true.
Which I'm sure can be frustrating
A
sometimes.
little bit.
but at
I
the
kind of
same
like
time,
I
it's
like to
probably
sneak
good for
something
you,
by
too.
every now and then, but I don't. Not very often. Yeah, no, she's always aware. Which I mean, I appreciate and respect, and I respect that she is not submissive, because if she were, we definitely would not be where we are in life. That is 100% true,
Right.
because there's no way I give her the credit all day long for the business that we have and the growth that we've experienced, because I was not going to lead the way to that.
Right,
Like
right.
I would have just stayed in a 60 to 70 hour a week shitty job.
Right.
Fuck you, BMW Nashville. Don't edit that out. Keep it. Fuck 'em. But yeah, I mean, it's it could be a horrible, but I would just be going through those motions
Right.
and just doing the same shit, because I wouldn't have the.
It'd be miserable.
It'd be miserable. I would not have had the courage
Okay.
to have just said, "Screw it, let's go."
So she definitely pushes you to be your best.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, the thing that has attracted me to Elizabeth is just, for one, her willingness to handle mental health issues and hit them head on. Like, damn it, she likes to have fucking tough conversations. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. But then you talk
And you're
about
an
it,
8.
you're like, oh my God, better.
And you're an
that's
8
bad.
and don't want to talk about it. That tells you something.
But they don't make me uncomfortable, and I know I need to have them. But she sees something in herself that needs to be worked on or addressed, and something in our relationship. And she's like, okay, here it is. Let's talk. Let's get this out here. And she'll be like, we're gonna schedule this on this day, and we're gonna talk about it. And I'm gonna go ahead and give you a little heads up of what I'm thinking, and we can go from there. But she's never had an issue, and she in that way has helped me grow more as a human than anybody else I've ever been around. So, okay, so toxic advice number 1 in the books.
That's pretty good. I think that.
What? Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, any other takeaways from today? What do you take away from today?
I think like that advice. that advice is like he's trying to do something. He's trying to create some kind of biblical truth. Clearly, is what he's doing. He's a pastor. But a lot of times people are taking stuff out of context, and a lot of times they're not vetting it with the other millions of verses that are in there.
And I also want to accept also that we didn't hear his next 10 minutes.
True.
Of
This
sermon
was
after
this
that.
was edited by someone
It's a clip.
else
I get it.
who
Yeah. It was a
wanted
clip.
to put out a point that they were even trying to make. So was
a
it
clip.
necessarily the
Yeah.
pastor's entire
And so,
deal?
right.
You know,
Probably
how did it
some
go?
little small
I'd give him a
penis,
little bit
like,
of-
insecure dude that's like, I need submissive women.
Literally. And so, like, for me, like, my takeaway is, one, like, that is not the opinion of every single person that is a believer, first.
That's fair.
I think that's important to know because there are
That's
a lot
fair.
of people that do have that
That's fair.
stance and don't necessarily preach that kind of stuff.
100%. I know pastors that don't. preach
And I would say my takeaway is like if a pastor shares something, if we're talking about bad advice, like make sure that they're talking in context. Like that verse that he's referencing is talking about Gentile women who would use Christian morals to get a husband because they needed money and they needed to have security. And so it's like that's not happening in 2023.
Right.
There's not a single person in the world that's like, you know what? I'm going to go to Belmont University or Lipscomb because I need me a Christian husband
Need me a
because they
good
make a lot of
Christian
money. There's not a single one. Not a single freaking one.
Yeah.
And so
Might
my
be one. There
takeaway
could
would be
one.
maybe
There might be
one.
There might be one, but she's also very confused.
Yeah, right? Classic
It's like-
her.
Classic her.
Classic her.
I misread that.
But I would say my takeaway, I refrain from sharing a lot of scripture stuff, but there is
Jesus
a verse. Yeah, right. Jesus wept. He did. He was a human.
Bam.
Sleeping.
Right there, baby.
Um,
Black and
Sleeping right
white.
now.
Or maybe when I was like,
This verse in Proverbs 31:16 says, "She considers a field and buys it with the fruit of her own hands. She plants a garden, a vineyard, and she creates fruit with her own strength." So this verse, right? And if you're in church world, you know a Proverbs 31 woman is the kind of woman you want. This guy's saying that kind of woman's submissive. Proverbs 31 is saying that she's somebody that buys land with her own money and then builds something with her own hands. That's not a submissive woman.
But then he did go on to say that she made him a glass of wine and brought it to him.
Right, yeah, and rubbed his feet and did all that stuff. Right, that's this verse.
From the grapes that she
But-
grew
Right.
on her land.
But I would just say, like, read it in totality because Scripture is actually, especially the New Testament, is very pro women in power,
Sure.
pro women in leadership. This audio that we've heard is not that.
Right.
It's anti, and it's because they're grasping at straws for some kind of power dynamic that no longer exists.
Yeah.
Making the context your own. Like, here's words you can twist them in any way you
Yes.
want to put out whatever bullshit, shitty masculinity advice you want to have, and you can do it in the name of God. That makes it. Well, there we go. It must be great advice then.
Well, it's like if
Here's my
it's
shitty God advice.
well, that's the thing is if it's shitty advice and I can blame it on somebody, it's not my shitty advice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like we got into some deep stuff right there. Episode 1, man. What do you think? That
was a good start. I feel like
um,
we on the right road. I think this could get, as we unpack some of these future episodes, that I hope we've got notes on
Yeah.
what we discussed that would be a future episode. There are going to be a bunch of them. I hope everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, so that
It's
reminds
excited
me,
for 'em.
everybody. So if you were in your car or running or on a treadmill or on a bike or wherever listening to this
Going to the
podcast,
bathroom.
Going to the bathroom.
The only
I know I do a
pooping
lot of
podcast.
things while I'm taking a poop. Sometimes, and parents
Sometimes you
hear
listen
me
to
out
an
on
entire
this.
30-minute
Clip it.
podcast.
Don't tell me that you don't go in the bathroom even when you don't have to use the bathroom
Oh, yeah.
just to
Just
be
gonna-
alone.
I
So
wish I
if,
wouldn't.
if
I
any
do
of
that
those
at work.
things,
Is that not?
so if any of those things
Hey,
were
I got
the
an
case,
appointment.
I got an appointment. I'll be right
yeah.
back.
there will be show notes.
Talk to 'em.
There will be show notes. So check those out. They'll be attached to each episode. But thanks for joining along, and we'll see you next week.
All right,
I like that.
that's
Bye.
I'm going to
Yeah,
go
so
ahead and
drink-
say this too. Go ahead and on this reel, if you have any questions for us that you think, or if you've had bad advice, go ahead and just send it to us. Send me a DM, and then we can go
Slide
ahead
in
and
his
duet
DMs.
that and just say what we have to say about that bad advice.
Yeah, love
Oh, yeah.
that. Love to give you all the takes. So,
Hot
Boom.
takes.
cheers.
Cheers. Thanks. I got ice. My ice cubes are dry.
It's all good. I
Do
drank
something
mine
about
pretty
this.
fast.